Well, that's quite a shift in storytelling methods, but I guess I have my theories on how they're playing things out, but this is my thoughts on episode 2 of Muv Luv Alternative, so let's jump right into it. So yeah, episode 2 opens up with Shirogane Takeru, and he's currently in the battlefield, and he gets taken out, and he wakes up in his bed at his house. And it seems like he goes back in time by 2 months, as you find out through his narration that there is an alternative 5 program that gets initiated by humankind where they abandon Earth, get into shuttles, and fly off into space. But unfortunately, besides a few 100,000 humans, everybody else gets left on Earth, and they have to basically fight for survival until eventually they get wiped out. So as he's realizing that he is going back in time and he's retaining his memories, he wants to do everything that he can in order to make sure that Alternative 4 happens and that they don't initiate Alternative 5 and leave mankind behind to be doomed. So in order to make this happen, he has to make sure that the lady that was behind Alternative 4 succeeds in what she's doing. So he ends up going back to his school where they have turned into a base and talks to the professor there in order to see what he can do in order to help her. Of course, he has to kind of explain a situation that he's going back in time, that he knows what happens in the future, and make sure that she believes it. But it's through this conversation with her that we find out that he was from a world or an existence where there was no beta. And he woke up one day in this world where his school was a base and the beta exists, and everybody that he knew from his previous life, this parallel world, are all like different people. All of his friends are now soldiers and stuff, and they're fighting the beta. And yes, he's having this time loop issue where he goes back in time a certain amount of time, and he's trying to, I guess, correct it in some way. And of course, at some point, she asks him, like, why are you doing this? You said that you were from a world where everything was happy. When did you go from not wanting to be in this world and wanting to go back to wanting to save this world? And it's obvious that it seems like it's because of the people that he meets in this world. He wants to save them. So yeah, for the rest of the episode, it's basically Shirogane as he's essentially getting a part of the training academy there, trying to get to the point where he becomes a TSF pilot, and he kind of meets all of his squadron, which is a set of like 5 girls. And towards the later part of it, he has a conversation with one of them, Mitsurugi, where he essentially establishes memories of when she essentially divulged what she's doing and why she's doing it. The idea that she desires to save the cultures of people. Not necessarily that she's trying to save the government and the people within it, but she wants to save the culture, the beliefs that people have. That's what she's fighting for. So yeah, like I said, very interesting shift of narrative. Like we technically had it with the first episode, this kind of focus on one particular girl, Sayako Komaki, her being a part of the Sato base falling, everybody having to be evacuated, all these beta attacking, to essentially a time loop story, which is very interesting. Not that I'm upset by this. Obviously, this is based off of a visual novel, and what I'm curious about is if this is canon that Shirogane has like a time loop aspect, and that's what gives him an advantage, because it establishes that he remembers what happens, and plus he also retains his conditioning. So not only, it's not like a, all you need is kill kind of situation or live, die, repeat. It's not that kind of death loop aspect where he only remembers his training. This is a situation where he remembers his conditioning too. So, if he gets physically more fit, he actually retains that. But my curiosity is, being based off of a visual novel, is this canon, or is this a way they're going to use in order to basically tell each of the girls' stories? Because, if it's based off a visual novel that is a select your girl to romance type of thing, the problem that you face is that you can only follow one route when you do an adaptation. Whereas if you do a death loop aspect, it allows you to recall all these memories of all the, happy ends for all these girls. And I'd assume that Mitsurugi's story that we had at the very end of this episode is where they're doing that. Well, okay, this is where her story eventually gets to, where she reveals that she is doing it for this reason. So in the next episode, we can have where he recalls the final moments that he spoke with Miki, and Miki tells him everything that she is doing for, and that's her romance ending. I'm just curious about that. It seems like that would be probably the way that they could go about telling each of the girls' routes without having it go into each one of these routes and, tell each arc fully. It was also interesting they kind of noted this aspect that I think that they're specifically have like a restriction for only females to be in this group. I don't know if in this world females have a more affinity to, TSF machinery, or if this particular platoon was just trying to focus on being all female. You're in basically the world's ending, doom, and all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure they're going to care about if they have female or male cadets or not. They're just going to, if you have a cadet and he's good, get him in the group. I don't know necessarily that you should go, well, it's a male, so we can't have him in this platoon. So I'm curious if that's a thing. I know that Jinjunji kind of mentioned something about him getting around that restriction or something like that. They said something, I forget exactly what it was. It was kind of interesting to see that we have a Rei Ayanami character already. Mikoto is this girl that apparently is hospitalized, so we have our Rei Ayanami probably gonna get, you know, brought in on a bed at some point, rolled in. I'm curious what Alternative 4 is going to end up being, because it puts a lot of emphasis on that being successful, and obviously it failed because they did Alternative 5. He knows what Alternative 5 is, but they're not revealing to him quite yet what 4 is. And I'm curious if it's going to be one of those things where when he finally finds out what 4 is, he realizes either it's a impossibility or it's something that is really terrible. I just have that mindset, like, why do you want 4 to happen so much? You do realize it's, like, really terrible. Okay, if you really want it to happen, I guess we can make it happen. But so far, I really do like the introductions of the girls. I don't really find any of them to be a bother. I think maybe Kay a little bit, but so far, I think they're all, the chemistry is already kind of sparking up for it, which I definitely enjoy. I think the same with Mitsurugi especially was really fantastic, and I'm really kind of hoping for that kind of same care to be done with all the other girls. But yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. That's my thoughts on episode 2 so far. Great introduction of all the characters. Curious to see what 4 is. And again, if my theories is correct, this is an aspect of retelling all these particular routes by utilizing this reset and memory option. But interesting way of doing that, if that's the case. But I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what's the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon if you can. We definitely appreciate everybody that does. And also in the description, there's a tip button where you can support us directly. And y'all take care.